we're
here.
Good. Yeah.
Thanks so much for having that conversation with me. I like that we're seated like this because it's really in the ambience of the thing you do here, and that's at your place. So the first thing I wanted to go into with you is if you can break down and talk about the different variation and thing that you have in yoga, because I know that there's like
different style
and different name that I was going to say a name, but I just
totally. And with our studio too, we honor the styles and their evolution, especially in like modern Western yoga. But we've named them differently for Noble as well. So there's a lot to remember there.
Okay.
But first, I want to say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. I tried to not be too giddy, but I was really excited to do this, and I'm really honored. So, the breakdown of the styles. I mean, generally speaking, you have different styles like Vinyasa yoga, which is very flowing, so usually one breath per movement. And then you have Hatha yoga, which is more like 5 to 10 breaths in each posture or each asana. And then there might be a little bit of flowing movement in like an arms or something, but you usually hold the shape. And then there's like yin restorative. I find nowadays those two styles get a little melded together, but you hold basically a shape for, can it be anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes. And traditionally in yin yoga, you wouldn't really use any props, and in restorative, you do use a lot more props to kind of support the body while it relaxes. So that's the difference there. And then we have meditation classes, and I mean, the list goes on, because then there's like kind of like these offshoots of each style in its own way as well. And now we live in a time where people get creative. But here at Noble, I renamed, for the purposes of this studio, I renamed each style a little differently. So for the Vinyasa, it's called the Rise. For the Hatha Yoga, it's called the Refinement. And then we have like our own set sequence of a hot series. And I mean, as we all know, that was Bikram. And so I'm using some inspirations from that series, and then I've also just incorporated a little bit of flowing and a little bit of, just breath work. And we call that the ritual. And then we have the yin, which is like the repose, and the ruminant, which is the meditation. So all ours. But because I think people kind of can attach, I don't know, maybe their own definition or even a judgment if they've already had an experience with yoga and it didn't align, or it really did align, and so that's what they're looking for. I just wanted to create a space where there's a container in which each style is sort of supposed to fit within to a degree, but then we can also express ourselves as teachers in this space and bring our own offerings and wisdom to the way that we teach, without people kind of going, oh, this should be like that, because I want to break away from expectation.
Okay. Yeah. So that's mainly for that, to appropriate the thing and make your twist in it.
Yeah.
And so people also don't step in with a preconceived idea of what would be that type of yoga and stuff like that.
Totally. And I mean, in the descriptions, and I could go on about this forever, but I'll kind of, wrap up this question in this way. But in the descriptions, it does say what we're nodding towards in terms of the style, to give you an idea of what to expect. But I really want people to come in here and kind of free themselves of having to know what's going to happen. Yeah, because we already, I think most of us, we come from a place of like wanting to control or needing to plan, and I get it. I'm a mother, I own a business, just generally as a person, I'm a bit OCD, but here, like just this one space where you can just let that all go, and my other teachers will take care of you. Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to have a space to be able to do that, especially today?
Yeah, yes, especially nowadays. I think we live in a society that we hear a lot about self-care now. I think it's really been commercialized. Is that a bad thing? No, it's great that we're having that conversation. I don't necessarily believe that when something becomes trendy, we've arrived in actually achieving what the true purpose of that need originally came from. But it's great we're all talking about self-care and mental health and things like that. I think to go beyond the point of just talking about it and to get past the point of it being a materialistic thing, coming to a space where you start to focus on less of the to-do list or even the list of things that you think you're not doing, you wish you were doing, so the berating that can happen. I think it's important to be able to come to a space where like the only focus is your breath. And for you to not, you, I, we, to not have to know all the answers or know what the plan is. Because I think then that starts a new practice of like trusting the process and also deepening the relationship with self, that you're going to be able to show up in every moment that life offers you. And it doesn't have to be perfect because it's a practice, but you will have the tools, or you will gain the tools from the experience. And I think we practice that in the body first, and then we carry that into life as a whole.
Right. And how can this beneficiate people once they're gonna get out of here? Is it something, do you feel like it's resetting people? Do you think how does that add up? And that's that glimpse of calmness into the chaos of people's life?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. I think, we get people for a moment in their day, or sometimes just an hour in the week. People come as much as they can, and usually, a yoga practice or any self-care practice is the first thing to get eliminated from the list when you're busy. So,
which is too bad, but
I think it adds up over time in terms of the difference it can make if you can come a little more regularly. But even in just that 1 hour or 50 minutes, whatever class you're taking, if you're lucky enough to have enough time in your day to take the 90-minute classes, I love what you said about it resetting, because if we stop when we're feeling chaotic in the mind, especially say anxiety, if we stop when we're having an anxious moment and we just breathe, you're not in a class, you're just at home, and you just take like 3 to 5 deep breaths, that does change the way even your amygdala, this sort of animalistic response happens naturally. It gives your body a chance to go, okay, I can be grounded, I can slow down. Where are my feet? What am I doing with my hands? How am I feeling? So if that can happen in 3 to 5 breaths, I believe it has an even greater impact when you come to a place like Noble and you're doing that for anywhere from, half an hour to a couple of hours. Because now we're just drawing out that little bit of what I like to call like a holistic medicine. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, so it gives you the opportunity to just like be more relaxed in your day and make better decisions, because like you said, we make better decisions when we tend to be relaxed than through anxiety, even though sometimes stress can be good, but most of the time it's better to settle down a little bit before
and even and this is my greatest struggle in life, is like knowing when we need to go into like survival mode, because it is 100%. It's a tool. We've come about those ways of being. Honestly, some situation or experience in life made us go, I have to act now. But how do you let that go so it doesn't become the only way that you respond to what, anything in life?
Yeah.
Because it can be so small, all of a sudden you're snapping at people and the situation doesn't even call for it. Or you're like driving in your car and somebody kind of cuts you off and you're like giving them the finger. And it's like, is that necessary? Like, what else is actually happening for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I like that. It's really important to just be aware of these things. That's like, for me, it's like step one, to be aware of your emotion, how you feel under stress and things. Because you can't control anything if you're not first aware of these things. Do you feel like, because you haven't done yoga your entire life, right? It's
right.
How long it's been, like the first yoga session you
Yeah, I
made?
think I committed to a practice in 2008 or 2009.
Okay.
So,
Do
math.
you feel? Well, I mean, yeah. Can you see a before and after in your day-to-day life, like outside of yoga? Is it something that helped you at different level mentally, or reconnect with your body, or just being more aware, or body awareness probably?
Yeah.
And your approach, like outside of yoga, like do you feel like it's something that improved
Yeah.
and helped you with all that, and if yes, what exactly and
Yeah.
how, etc.?
Yeah, it's funny. This is like a deeper question almost, and so cut me off anytime. But yes, and the reason why is because I did not, and it's different for everybody, but I didn't enter into yoga. I really actually didn't enter into yoga by my own choice. No one forced me to go there, but it was an invitation because I had fled from Toronto to Vancouver from a severely abusive relationship. And so, without making this like a trigger warning, but like,
No, for sure.
I almost died from the abuse. One relationship left me on the street, and I was in critical care. And then the other relationship was less physical, but more like locked me in a room for hours, days sometimes on end. So I can talk about that on surface level now, but there's more trauma work that is to be done there. But sort of fast forwarding to when I was able to, with the help of my father and the rest of my family, like literally run away from Toronto, move to Vancouver, you can imagine that I really didn't feel like I had ownership of my own body. Being objectified for so long creates this barrier between understanding, like, yes, I move in my own body, but like, this is like, you just go into a place of just extreme dissociation in every moment. So it was my father who actually brought me to my first yoga class, and I was kind of anti-therapy back then, only because my experience in these little spurts was that it was talk therapy, and that's really hard to talk about trauma at that time. It was too fresh. And so he invited me. He was already doing the practice, and he said, like, okay, maybe this is a way for you to start to get back into your body. You don't have to talk about any of the things that are that are hurtful inside you, and you can just start to like literally somatically, like, feel your body, and start to associate emotions and sensations. And that honestly was the beginning. It was like a therapeutic process for me. And I came and went from the practice. I was like really dedicated for a few years, and then many things have happened along the way, like addiction being a part of my story, and et cetera, et cetera. We can touch on those things, but each time I left the practice, going back into those sort of trauma responses, survival responses, which I needed at one time but didn't necessarily need anymore. It was yoga that, like, when all was lost, I had associated it now with being the thing that could help. And so I do believe that it can make an incredible difference. And the way that it's impacted me now outside, of course, what is that? We're in 2023, so we're talking over 15 years now. I have had an incredible journey of practicing and teaching and now owning my own studio. But outside of this space, though this is my favorite facilitator, it's created an ability to like see people and hear people and be empathetic in terms of like what could be going on beyond what is spoken, you know, like, and because we feel a lot more sometimes than we're able to even articulate or that we ourselves can even define.
Yeah, totally. So, how long was the moment, from the moment you started until the moment you realized you actually wanted to make a career out of it and eventually teach and eventually have your own studio? How long was and how was the process in between, and how long? And at the time, so you arrive in Vancouver and you start doing yoga, practicing yoga.
Yeah.
At that time, what were you doing also professionally at that moment? There was two questions in one.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm a little ADD, so I can probably grab them all. I was 18 at that time,
okay.
So
okay, super
yeah,
young.
so I'm like 32 and a half now. Yeah, I was pretty young at that time. I had moved out when I was 15, and then kind of like, you know, the roller coaster that comes with moving out as a child. But at that time, I was kind of just bouncing around, honestly. I started going to yoga probably in the first week I had moved to Vancouver. So that kind of set me on that path. And in the meantime, because I'm a high school dropout, I was looking for ways of getting back into an educational setting and like for my own learning and how to go about that without necessarily having to go back and redo high school. Because it was June, I think of like 2008 or 2009 when I had moved to Vancouver. So I was about to be 19 in like half a year, like going back to high school just felt like, so stay in school. Don't do drugs. Okay, now I've said it. Yeah, so, and so what ended up happening from there is I actually went down a path of film. So I'd gone into a youth employment program, all centered around teaching you employment skills through filmmaking.
Okay.
And then I finished that program, and that kind of helped me create a package that I applied with as a mature student and went back to school at Capilano University in Vancouver in North Van. And then I did that for a little bit. So that kind of like was ongoing, and I kept with film for like off and on. I mean, I did really good as a mature student, like when I went back to university, and then I didn't have all the tools to sort of sustain, so I dropped out, I think in my third year, and then I was like really heavy into my addiction, which at that time was a coping mechanism for all the trauma that I wasn't necessarily dealing with, you know, but nonetheless, I kind of carried on. I actually worked at the National Film Board, and then I worked at a couple production offices, and then I kind of segued into restaurant work. I like paused on film, segued into restaurant work, which you can imagine doesn't really bode well if you are already an addict. And then I got out of the restaurant industry and went back to film and kept with that until I was primarily a second assistant director, a little bit of first assistant directing as well. I think what happened is I had this, and I mean, it's like there's so many things happening in my head right now because I'm like, wow, when somebody asks you about your life, you're like, shit, that happened, you know, and this and this and this. But my addiction kept taking me out. So I had
Of yoga, you mean, or of
no,
your
drugs.
generally?
Yeah.
Yeah, but taking you out of like. What do you mean?
I mean, like taking me out, like putting me down almost, like overdosing. And so taking
I
me
see.
out almost
I see.
of life as a whole,
I see,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And then and taking me out of jobs and opportunities and even just being able to show up for like social like functions because, you know, when you're using so heavily, you feel so terrible about yourself, but also like you isolate because who else is using like no one can know, right? No one can see this. You don't even want to look at yourself. And so it was like this, like, you know, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore, and I'd be okay for a bit, and then one thing or another would happen, and then I'd, you know, start up again, and so relapsing, and I hadn't found a 12-step program yet at this time. To be honest, I don't even think I called myself an addict. I had the story in my mind that like, I'm just having a hard time, you know, and when I'm not gonna, if I do better and I'm not having a hard time, I won't need drugs or alcohol anymore. And the thing about that is that it's not about having a good time or a bad time, it's trauma. It's a trauma response. So it was, wasn't in recovery yet. I was still using heavily. I was working in film, and then it was just, you know, between 14 and 20-hour days, 5 to 6 days a week, working on feature films. Like, it was a lot. And I kind of had like another breakdown and decided I need to stop what I'm doing. And I was just going to take a temporary break from working in film. I was at the height of my career, so like I was being offered the jobs, and it was the moment when I was like, I don't think I want this, or certainly I'm not doing okay personally, even if this part is doing well. And so there was a teacher training at the studio that I practiced at all the time in Vancouver, and they had this part-time program, and I was like, this is great. I can still kind of pick up, you know, some day work in film, but take this training. And so for just my mental health, because I'm always of the mindset now, knowing who I am, that if I just have time off, that's a dangerous thing for me. So I took this training, and I wasn't going to be a teacher, and then one of my teacher trainers, well, both of them, honestly, I love them so much. They're still in my life today. But one of them was like, you know, I'll take you under my wing, and like I think that you have something. And she showed me that it was so much more than just like this hobby, you know, that there was a real, I already knew this, but I think professionally I had not connected that this spiritual practice could also be a profession, and that it could be like the way I build my whole life. And so then I started to, you know, for lack of a better expression, hustle in this area and try and make a real go of it, which was interesting because I was still using drugs and alcohol at the time.
How were you feeling at that? What was your relationship with yoga at that point? Was it something that was helping you, like for really was helping you reconnecting with your body, maybe escape a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, not escape, but did you feel like it was helping you?
Yes, yeah, totally. I mean, I think it was, escape is not necessarily the wrong word. It was helping me escape from the demons in my mind, for sure. It's hard to use drugs and practice yoga. People might have a different experience than that, but it's not like I was smoking weed, you know. So, it was something else, and so I couldn't do that and come to my mat. So it was like this really beautiful way of like, hey, I have this thing I want to show up for that I have to show up for. And it gave, you know, it was like these little recesses in between any of the other ways I lived my life, which was kind of proving a point to me, a point I needed to prove to myself many times throughout my life. But the point being that, like, you might not have to use, you know, you might not have to only be in this chaotic, unmanageable state of thinking, of feeling, of living. And so, without even knowing it though, but also like it always has been, it was saving me. So, and I think that's why I was drawn to picking it up as a profession, because it was the thing that always kept me or got me clean. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would give you like accountability that you need to, I mean, accountability, like something that you, especially if it's professional, something that's like gonna, it's not like, oh, am I gonna go or not, because if it gets you like your
I
job,
think accountability is the perfect word though, because you have to think, like for me, like when I worked in restaurants, everybody's kind of drinking and doing drugs. Maybe not everybody, but it's very normal to the industry. And then when I'm working in film, ditto, right? It's very normal and socially acceptable to the industry. When you're working in yoga, it's kind of hard to be like, you know, take care of yourself, love yourself, you know. And I mean, these all sound like frou-frou-y lines, but like honestly, like taking care of yourself, loving yourself, honoring yourself, like these are actually like, we throw them around, we see them all over Instagram, but like, what does that mean really? And how can you put that out there if you are not living it authentically? Now, it might be your authentic truth. It was my authentic truth. And every time I heard it, what it did was it gave the part of me that wanted to save my life, it gave that part of me a voice. And all of a sudden, this part of me had more of a chance to speak up against the other part of me that was so loud for so long, which is you're trash, you're stupid, you know, your life is worthless, you're never gonna heal, you're never gonna be good at A, B, C, D, all the things that we can tell ourselves, whether you have extreme trauma in your past or, you know, a lower level of trauma, because it's all really self-defining. If you've been impacted, you've been impacted. But it gave a podium to a part of myself that I never really listened to, because I was never enough for a really long time. And yeah, so I think it's the one, for me, it was the one thing that I found in my life that just, like, it asked of me in a different way. It asked of me to be more honest, you know? And so, you know, the self-reflection ultimately culminated in making the ultimate choice to get clean. Yeah.
But what is beautiful to see is that it's by being honest with yourself that you open that side of you, that like the self-worth and the self-love from the honest part, and that's what is really good about that story I found.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're doing that, how would you call it, that course? No, yeah, a course.
Yeah, the workshop.
The workshop, and you go through this and you start teaching at that moment in that studio?
Yeah, the training. Yep, I went through the teacher training, and then I basically didn't leave any of them alone until they gave me a chance to teach for them. I mean, it expanded to more than that. You know, the beauty about having an addictive personality is that once you set your mind to something, you will really go for it. And so I took every mentorship and every training, and I just like threw myself completely. I was like, I'll do it all. Eventually, I had my mentor and teacher, Kay Gillespie. She actually was like, okay, and you know, at some point you might want to like just focus what it is you want to learn more about, and she did it so lovingly. But it was a beautiful way of being like, okay, now let me narrow and choose the path more intentionally. But in the beginning, I just was like, I don't know what doors I want to walk through and what doors I don't want to walk through. I don't know what's valuable and what isn't valuable. What I do know is that at this point, information is an incredible thing. Knowledge is an incredible thing. And I love learning. It's ironic that I dropped out of school, but I actually love learning. And so I think I just needed a space where I loved what I was learning about. And so I did that for, I volunteered, I took like the worst paying teaching gigs. I had a car, I drove from one end of the greater Vancouver area to the other end and then back. And like, you just, I got to the point where I was teaching 25 classes a week.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a lot, including the driving, and I slept in my car. But I like, it was so fulfilling. And then through that time period, I got offered, several. My home studio took me in, and they were behind me all the way. And I auditioned for them like 4 times. And so when they finally accepted, I mean, they opened that door wide open, and and then I had an incredible community of people who gave me lots of feedback in constructive ways, but also blunt ways, which really helped me grow and thicken my skin, where it was like, I can handle the truth and still believe in myself. Like, both can exist, right? I can be growing and working on things and also, be legit.
Yeah.
And then that kind of, so that was, I think it was 9 years till I took the training from when I first walked into a room, and then another 4 or 5 years to when after that I just started teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, so I messed that up. It's 9 years when I took the training. It was about a year of hustling, and then since that year of hustling, I guess now it's like I'm in my 6th year of teaching.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
How does the thing is, because at that point, when you're in that year of hustling, how did you know that you were gonna go like all out at that point, and that you wanted your own studio and things, and like, what did you have any like long-term thing, or it was really just like, I need to do that and I know, and just like, let's just do everything I can right now?
If you want to be really honest, if somebody ever, my family's gonna laugh at me, if anybody ever brought up owning my own studio, I would actually get mad. I really didn't believe in myself at that point to be able to do something like this. And also fear, like, even if I believed in myself, I lived in Vancouver at the time, so like, it was expensive, and I had this idea in my head that I'm new. And being new at something is really important, because that humbles you to being open to learning. But at some point, it can teeter into, I'm still not good enough. And in reality, there can be people who have been teaching yoga for 25 years, and, bless them, I'm not going to be going to their class, If you don't work on your craft, if you're not dedicated, time doesn't necessarily make you better. And so I got angry about that. We've owned businesses in my family. I owned a restaurant. That's a story for another day. And then my brother owns, he's a very successful owner of Nemesis Coffee in Vancouver. So entrepreneurship is in my blood. But I think there was an element of self-defeat, and also economically just didn't seem viable. The dream started to become a little more real as like a potential but a way offshoot somewhere in the years of teaching, but I think it wasn't even a full-on studio. It was more like retreats or teacher trainings and doing something more mobile business. And then I came to Vernon.
Okay. The city of possibilities.
I came to Vernon and was like, this is it. I mean, it's funny. You wouldn't give a small town, we're 40,000 people, maybe closer to 50 now. You wouldn't give it so much credit when you're an outsider walking in or looking in. But it's funny because, I mean, here we are together, and there is actually so much room for possibility. Yeah.
Everywhere. It's more because it's more like the humans that are creating possibilities, and not where you are. It's almost it's not as relevant as people.
Yeah.
What were during this? What are things, if you can recall, like maybe specific things that you either did or think about, or like that helped you with your with self-love and self-worth? Were they actions and like seeing things that you did, and the results of things that you did? Was it more in the action, or is it more in the mind, like through that journey from the moment you're starting to do all that to maybe that can come as early as to today, but throughout all this, like rebuilding yourself? If you have like specific things that you can say that really helped you
achieve that.
Yeah,
I mean, number one, hands down, I will always say I am a proud member of Narcotics Anonymous and also Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, it's an anonymous program, but I can break my own anonymity and just say that, like, it has helped me immensely. I went into that room very broken, a room being a meeting room, but just generally claiming my seat in the program of recovery of a 12-step program. I was very, very broken, and it is a community of people that can relate in their own ways, but completely understand the feeling of self-hatred and loathing and loneliness. The loneliness that you feel when you're coming from that place. And they see you. And you don't have to explain yourself, or defend yourself or justify your actions. Instead, actually, it calls upon you to be really honest. So like if you did some fucked up shitty things, there's a whole step on that so that you can take accountability and make amends. So that is the number one thing. And in that, it talks about, loving self and, the community of people around you loving you until you know how to do that. And there's just, I won't go into the whole thing, but it's a great program. And it is not just the foundation of my life today, but I work that program, and that program works in my life every single day, in a really intentional way. And then in a sort of divine way sometimes, blows my mind. Therapy. I would say that yes, doing my own practice on the mat and all of that, like that gave me something for me, but to understand how to really translate it and even start to like expand on how a yoga practice, because it's all related for me, can be so powerful. It's like what comes up for me in those moments, now what do I do? Right? And so it almost is like this, like a circle where like, yoga went into therapy for me, therapy went back into yoga. And what I mean by that is that there's talk therapy, but there's also like somatics. And so really understanding what sensations are happening in the body and being able to like feel them and explain them. And I don't mean like I feel angry or I feel sad, because that is one way of saying how you feel. But how about like, where do you feel the anger? Okay, I feel it in my throat. What does it feel like? It's constricting. It feels kind of pinchy also up, and then down it feels more like pressure. So like just giving that as an example, like having that language has helped me so much in also being able to then come into a room and teach a class and communicate what it is I'm actually trying to offer as an experience or invite, my students in to experience. There's some books that I highly recommend, like Pima Chodron is a beautiful book. When Women Were Birds is another incredible book. I read a lot of poetry, which is something that kind of, I think it just, sometimes there's like the breaking it down away in like a novel or like the practices, but then when you read poetry, again, it evokes some kind of like emotion, which then is another way of being like, oh wow, this, this makes me feel something.
Yeah.
And then, I could go on about Gabor Mate all day long. Another incredible book, and I wish I could think of the author right now, but I can always remember the title of the book, which is The Body Keeps Score.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is the first, hopefully I quoted that right, but I just put that out there because it's the first book that more scientifically, but it actually broke down like what was happening for me and why, so that I could stop being like, I always imagined myself back in the day being like, don't do that, like stop doing that, But like how many times have we all done that? And like, but at the same time, like there's some part of it that's like out of your control. There's practices to help take back the control and have more choice in those trauma responses. But if we don't understand that it's a trauma response, like there's something actually anatomically happening, so that then we know what the tools are that we each individually need to then start rewiring our brains. We're just going to keep banging our heads, going, it's my fault, it's my fault. It's not that it isn't someone's fault, it's just like there's other care that can go into making a change. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think one of the general idea is that we're carrying things, right? We store things.
Yes.
And we need like things, emotions, feel or things like traumatic events and things, like everything is we store and carry things. And if we don't let them out, like everything, we have inputs and outputs, and if we don't release things, it stays inside, and I think it's something that like now it's more open, but something that's been repressed. Everybody is different, right? But there's a lot of maybe more on the men's side, I found, where you expressing or talking about how you feel, and let things out, and it's very related to that, and it's just like being aware that like everything that you take in, it needs to circulate,
right?
It
needs to. Yeah, it's funny. I love what you say. I was just having a conversation with my trauma therapist last week, and I was in session with her, and I'm currently going through a sexual assault trial. And so she asked me this question about like, are you feeling safe? And if not, what happens for you? Like when is it happening? And so I explained the situation of sometimes I think I see the person and this is my response. I freeze, I start panicking, my breath gets kind of short and shallow, I get a little clammy, and I start shaking. And she was telling me, lots of different things on how to deal with that moment, but she was like, the shaking is good. The shaking is good. Not some of us, we just freeze, but the shaking is good because of exactly what you're saying, which is when the amygdala response happens, you're in danger, fight or flight, your whole body goes into this, whatever happens for you. For some of us, we freeze and we disassociate. For others, we're just like really hyper and manic or combative. Sometimes it goes from one into the other, but nonetheless, you actually want to get rid of the energy. And so she was like, lean into the shaking. That's your body actually trying to end the cycle where you're just like getting it out. And because we don't just store the memory, like the visual memory of what's happened. It's exactly what you said, where it's like, we also have the physical, like it's almost like a muscle memory. Like we carry it in our stomach or our shoulders, or, if we can smell something and it remind us of someone, or listen to a song and we become nostalgic, like, of course there's like, it must also be like a touch sense as well, like, of course it must be in the body.
Especially with the emotions that appeared with it. I just heard something like a few days ago, you remember more strongly and better things when you have like a spike of what was the
cortisol?
Not cortisol. Another one.
Endorphin.
Not endorphin. The when you have like something extreme happening to you.
Yes.
I mean, it got out of my head.
It's gonna come to us.
But when there's when there's emotions that are attached to anything, that's how that links.
Yeah.
When you have a taste of something or a smell, or you see something, and but it's just like fascinating how humans, how we're just carrying things, because we're just the addition of everything that ever happened to us, and it doesn't exist anymore. It's just stored, and we're carrying all this, the good and the bad and everything in between. Yeah. And it's just funny how it works, but.
And I think you're right about the repressed. Like, I think we are.
Adrenaline, I think it was that, but it came back to me. But
Okay,
whatever.
what is it? Say it.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yes. How did we not remember?
So if you wanna learn something, like read something, and then you either go do an ice bath or something that's gonna have you a peek of that, and it's gonna help you memorize the thing. But whatever.
No, not whatever. I'm so glad you said it. I'm glad you remembered it like now, because we went the whole episode and we're like, hey, that thing back an hour ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think repressed is also. It's funny you said that. One, I do think men are repressed. I am an advocate for in terms of the way they connect with their emotions or the ability to speak about them. I think we are struggling, like different genders, or however you self-identify, we're each having a struggle. And I'm an advocate for women, first and foremost in many ways, but I come from a family of only brothers, and my father being my primary parent. So, I think it's a much larger learning curve to be able to communicate like what is being felt and what traumas, as we know, because there's a lot of statistics on women who've experienced sexual abuse or abuse as a child, or just abuse in general. There isn't enough men who are feeling comfortable yet to come forward to have an actual, I think, legit statistic on, for men and what they've experienced. And so where does that live? I think we see the side effect of it all the time in society, but coming out of the pandemic, and without going on that, I think it amplified a feeling of repression. I think it tore off 100% certain mass, for lack of a better expression, but certain suffocated voices, I think also had an opportunity to speak and be heard. And I'm so grateful for the pandemic in that respect. But I also think that it has, we didn't know what to do. And so I think a lot of us, everybody really, needs to go back and make sure they pick up their tools, of therapy, of community, of self-care practices beyond getting your hair and your nails done, like actual self-care practices, meditation, breath work, things like that, so that we start to make space, not necessarily even in a dialogue between, two people, but like you start to make more space to connect with your body again, because connection, I think, was the big thing that was lost. And I think that was like in our surroundings, but also inside. You know, a lot of us numbed it out, right?
Yeah.
Shows, drinking, drugs. You know, I'm grateful to have stayed clean through that whole time, but like food, you know, like it was a season of numbing.
Yeah, it's the unknown, right? Like suddenly we're thrown into an unprecedented situation. But like you said, in all respect for the thing, there's the thing is, I'm a firm believer. Not like the COVID; it's just kind of like an extreme instance.
Yeah.
But to throw here and there people into an unknown situation is actually really healthy, because it's going to help you, I think, being less stressed in your daily life. When you're somebody that very often, not necessarily often, but here and there, try something new, get into something that you don't know, it helps you. Then when life throws at you something that you didn't know, you're not going to lose your shit right away.
Totally.
That's fine. Like I've already felt that. I felt that unknown. I know I can do it.
Yes.
I trust myself. And if you don't let room ever for this, and you're just all about, I do this and I control everything, and everything is, and it's just like discipline, and there's no room for things. Well, there's one thing that's out of your control, that's unknown, and you're going to be way more stressed. And I think unconsciously, when you plan your life and your days like completely fully with no room for anything, and you're just somebody that just wants to control everything, you're more stressed facing unknown events, and you're going to have like worse reaction, I think,
Totally.
in moments like that. But that was just
Well, I think
parentheses.
like, you know, yeah, you don't need an extreme situation. You just need little moments. It's funny, people always say to me, "Oh, I can't do yoga. I'm not very flexible." And I'm like, no, you don't come flexible. You're like, we help you reach whatever, you know, capacity your body has, but we help you do that here. You don't like come ready. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and I think that just is like, I always chuckle at that statement, because it's really fear. You've never tried it before. You're not going to be good at it. But it's like you said, if you live in a bubble of comfort all the time, I mean, life doesn't work that way. It's not sustainable. It's going to throw a variable at you, and like, what do? You know? And I think, I mean, the most precious moments of my life, honestly, and the more, or the most delight or joy that I felt came out of a really uncomfortable time, you know? And I'm not saying, hey, I want to always have like a breakdown before a breakthrough, but it, you know, even if it's a long period of time, because there are things that happened, you know, in my childhood or teenagehood, whatever, you know, fast forward 10, 20, you know, or plus years, that like, you know, I have an experience today where I go, oh my gosh, like, I remember this thing from way back then, and it didn't make sense to me, or maybe it pained me, I moved on, whatever, and then this other thing happens today, and I go, wow, this is the opposite, or that, these two things now give me clarity, you know, like wisdom born of experience.
Yeah.
So, and often it comes from discomfort.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And linked big time, we were talking about self-love and self-worth. Big time with this also, like congratulating yourself with facing something that was scary, and you did it anyway, and that way you build things. You were talking about sexual trauma. I know you did, was it like seminar or workshop?
Yeah,
or things
it's like a
around
workshop.
that? Can you explain a little bit of what you do in these, and
Yeah.
on what is based and extra?
So we've had one so far, and more on the way. Actually, I'm actually planning a couple things around that over the coming months. But the last one was it was like a relaxation group for sexual trauma survivors. man or woman. We happen to have a room full of women, but anyone is always welcome. And I want to put non-binary in there as well. And so what we did is in this one, and generally the framework is we keep it very low key in terms of like we're not really talking about the subject directly. It's not like a focus group or group therapy in any way. We understand why we've all come together to be in this space. And then there's like a yin restorative class, and then really gentle. This last event had Reiki. Other one will have like really gentle, like hands-on assist, which you can consent to because we have consent tokens, and you can change your mind anytime during the class, as well as guided meditation. And so it's framed around honestly just having a space where you can walk in not hiding this thing that happened to you, and instead come together in a space where other people also acknowledge this part of their experience, you know, this part of their past. And then we're not alone in it so much because it's such a taboo topic. And I find that hilarious that it's still so, and not in like a ha-ha way, but more in a like, what the fuck? But, you know, like why is it still so sensitive to talk about when it's happening all the time? And, you know, when I most recently experienced sexual, a sexual assault, I spent a good chunk of time immediately after, like trying to hide this thing. And I'm pursuing it criminally right now. And so we will see what happens with that. But regardless, I'm not looking to live alone in the shame of someone else's actions.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because it's part of like a little bit linked with like this project, and this is why I call it like a curious art, because like it's crazy how we distract ourselves and like fill ourselves with shame and things for something that happened to us by like an external company, which like somebody else does something to us that is completely out of our how would you say that?
Out of our control.
Yeah, out of our control.
Yeah.
And we beat ourselves up, and we want to hide ourselves, and we want to like hide it where, and it's gonna, for some people, being a pain your entire life.
And you didn't even cause it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy to me.
And then other people get so uncomfortable when you try and talk about it. I mean, I'm not going around, I mean, this is pretty big deal to be doing this right now. Generally, I don't like walk into a room and be like, this happened to me.
Yeah.
But like, if something comes up for me in my day-to-day life, I you know, or something is wrong, or I see something, or, you know, like, I don't know, like, there's certain things you filter. This is not one of them. And it is very interesting because people get all like uncomfortable, and it's like, and it shouldn't be an uncomfortable conversation. It's an uncomfortable moment for the person it happened to. But the conversation itself is like, well, I would almost think that what we need to work towards is a place where we can check in, you know, because sometimes things happen to people and it's completely wrong, and then they like embody it and they take it on, and they never say it, and then they are stuck in the place of questioning whether or not it was real or whether or not it was bad, you know, and that is such a, you know, I feel so sorry for the people, because I've been there and I understand it, that get stuck there because you don't feel like you can even talk about it, you know, even just check in, you know, so that someone then can say to you, oh, hey, like, you're not alone in this, or that's not okay, like, to help you protect yourself, you know?
Totally.
So going forward, because obviously, you know.
Yeah, but it's part of the message to, like, it's not Like there's nothing wrong with like expressing it, and it's not that there's nothing wrong. It's that you have to actually.
Yes,
If you
you
want to
have
get
to.
out of anything like this,
Yeah.
and that can be other things, like let's say any traumatic event or
Yes.
things like that. Like you have to find a way to be able to release it, because otherwise it will never.
It will never leave. Yeah, it'll live in the body forever.
And the everything that is associated to it, and like the feeling of vulnerability as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, and this is where it's crazy to me now. It's like it's really, it's not an illusion, but it's what are we're all in the same thing. That's the thing. We're all the same. And if one day something's gonna happen to you, one day something's gonna happen to that person, and we feel. Not the same way, everybody's different, but we can feel the same emotions here and there. We're really similar,
Yes.
but yet we feel that need to hide things, and if somebody is gonna like be vulnerable or just say, hey, like this happened, or I felt this way, why do we scare? What are we scared of that? And what do we think is gonna happen anyway? Nothing is gonna happen. It's something that I realized myself is that we beat ourselves up, or we try to hide things, but the thing is, most of the time, like other people don't even really care, like most people, I mean.
Yeah.
And it's, but for you, it's massive, because releasing things is gonna help you.
Yes.
And then people are gonna listen, and then they're gonna forget, and they're gonna move on with their
Yes.
own thing.
Yeah.
And just like that, there's that thing associated with vulnerability as being like weak or being taboo, or like, but.
Yes. And
It's
yet,
not.
it's not. It's powerful,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's like somebody that had the courage to say what everybody else is feeling.
Is feeling,
Yeah,
and but too afraid to say,
Yeah,
100%.
totally.
And I mean, that's why we're having this conversation here right now, right? Like, because after today, and no matter what, like, we will have always had this moment together.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we see each other a lot or a little bit, personally, for me, it will forever be a bond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is so beautiful. Now, on the flip side of it, you have people that are so judgmental or so, I don't know what a more eloquent word to use other than fake, but like, there's this mask, they're always wearing this mask of like, and then they can't handle that vulnerability, and so they project on. And it's hard, it's very, very hard as the person who is showing up vulnerably to remember that isn't about you. That doesn't mean that you don't try and find, like I'm forever learning how to be graceful, like, and so like there is a way of going about communicating something and understanding that sometimes people aren't ready, and you kind of have to meet people where they're at, and there is like mutual respect in it, but it shouldn't go so far as one person is hiding or another person is lashing out, or berating, and that's a dance. And if you're in that dance, then like, hey, it's time to go, and that person will either you'll circle back around in your life when they've done their own work, or I wish you all the best, and we're not on the same path anymore, because you can't carry people either,
no,
right?
yep.
But I think it is very courageous to be vulnerable and to have these conversations, because you're the one person in the room speaking up, but everybody's feeling it, or having an experience in their lives that makes them feel an overwhelm of emotion. It does not have to be the same experience, but that feeling, right, is so relatable. Yeah.
Totally. And so you talked about like judgment and people that can be judgmental. Did you? Is it something that you struggled with as well, like throughout your journey? Or not much? Was it?
No, I
not,
definitely.
You did?
Yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, no. To this day, I think I can be a polarizing person. I'm working on a filter. I don't actually think I was born with a filter. So generally what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling is what is coming out. Unless I'm in an extreme traumatized state, then I shut down completely. I totally freeze. which is, those are like intense situations. Otherwise, I like to be honest, especially coming, I think it's funny, tying in what you were saying about like hiding. I think I was hiding a lot of my experiences from the world around me and even from myself, like hiding from myself, like trying to just like break up with myself. Like I don't know how to describe it. And so it made me more sick. And then the sickness is the way I lived my life, right? It's just like it's such a toxic feeling. So being honest is kind of like a really key principle in my life. And I like to surround myself with people that I can speak honestly with. Not everybody has to be my best friend, and I'm not talking about my, the deepest things happening in my personal life, but when you come to my class, generally, if I'm having a week where I'm feeling anxious, I might share that. Likely I will share that, and I might share a bit about why that is, because I think it can be relatable.
That's nice.
And then to understand who I am today is to know where I come from. And again, I don't really sit down with just anyone and go, I moved out at 15. I was, severely abused. Then I was homeless. Then I was in another abusive relationship. Then this happened. Then I was in addiction. All of the things that come with being an addict. Selling my body. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like the overcoming of so much to then, come to a place of healing. I don't go through that in detail with anybody, but I'm not hiding it either. I think to be an advocate is to say, this is where I come from, I understand. I see you in my own ways, I can relate, so that then you being whoever can feel like you're a human too, and you can show up with the pain instead of trying to clean up the mess alone when you don't have the tools to clean up the mess alone. And then how do you get help if you're not honest, right? No one knows how to help you. You don't even know how to ask for help if you can't say, this is what is going on. So with that though comes sometimes a lot of judgments, right? Because drug addict, street person, trash, but it doesn't come, it's not like that. Dropped out of high school, must be stupid. The other things that happen, that I did in my life, it comes with just a lot. I am not made for a conservative person, but I think that's the price you pay for the gifts that do actually ultimately present themselves, which is real human connection.
Yeah. Well, to just remember what you said, also probably because, like you said, if I understood correctly at the beginning, honesty is deeply rooted in your own rebuild. So it's probably a pillar of who you are, and you can't go around that, which is a good thing, but sometimes the modern world make it hard. But anyway, like you said, it's not for too much conservative people. Not saying that conservative people are against honesty and all that stuff.
But
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But another thing that is fascinating to me, and I realized very late in my life, is the judgment, which was also a big barrier for me on I can't, what are caring too much about other people's opinion, is a complete, it's not an illusion, but it's completely out of your control, and it's absolutely not your own business, but it's mainly realizing that each of us, we have such a unique journey, we have such a unique path, and it's that path that built who we are today and how we're going to react to things. So how can I let myself affected by that person that I don't know on what they think about what I'm going to do, say, or express, it's completely irrelevant.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's so unique and so different, and how this could be. If I would want to have any kind of like interesting point of view on this person's judgment, I would have need to be above your shoulder your entire life,
Yep.
and in your head to see what you did, to see what you thought,
And where you're coming from.
where you come from, to just okay, you know, like have any kind of impact, and we let ourselves block by things that are completely. It's their point of view. They're expressing something from them.
Yes.
About them, or even the way you're going to react to things. It's all about you and not the
Yes.
thing you react. And really sitting and learning that and really embracing that fully, it's one of the things that allowed me to really
Unlock your own self.
and
Yes.
and really go through judgment, because it's just an illusion. It's irrelevant.
Yes. And it's kind of like what you said, like, because what if you did spend all that time on their shoulder, understand what happened to them, understand their thinking? I think what it would then create, honestly, if somebody were able to do that, is actually a place of empathy.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you're reacting this way. I don't have to carry it, but now I understand you better.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, be well. Because I think that's the thing, is that I don't want to fight with you based on your judgment. If I have to defend myself, I have to defend myself. But my history, it doesn't define me, it informs me, right? It's wisdom born of experience.
Yeah.
And would I change any of it? I can't say I would like to have gone through all those experiences and do it a second time. Like round one, I KO, I'm good with it. But at the same time, what happens if I change that? Maybe I don't have what I have today, and I'm grateful today, right? Maybe we don't sit here. Maybe you don't do this thing, which is so poignant and powerful and needed. So maybe we, arm in arm with so many other people who are walking this path with us, thankfully. But like, maybe we need to be the ones who get so uncomfortable and have the epiphany, the awakening, so that then we can hopefully clear the path for the people behind us to walk a little more smoothly. And I'm okay with that, because somebody, they did that for me, you know? They struggled for me, so that my struggle could look a little different or a little lighter, so that I had some supports or guidance along the way.
Of course. And in any ways, something I think about sometimes is, what is the alternative to this? Like, there's no real alternative. Like, all you can do, and your past and everything, like, there's no alternative.
Yeah.
Right? So all you can do is take what you have and do what you want before we're gone, because we're going to be gone, and everybody's going to be gone around you. And we overthink and we beat ourselves up, but like, we're just a passenger and we're a glimpse into something. So
100%.
like, it's
I mean, how terrible it would be if you like ended up at the end of your road, whenever that is, because none of us know.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I didn't do a single thing that felt true to me.
yeah, no,
Oh my God.
really,
That would
it's the worst.
That would be the worst,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It would be the worst, because it might seem worth it right now, but I don't want to fit in anywhere I don't fit, because really, even if I'm trying to fit in, I don't really, to be accepted because I'm trying to fit in means I'm not actually accepted.
Oh yeah.
To show up as I am, find my people, and honestly, I think there are circles that maybe will never see me as who I really am, never get to know me. But people surprise me all the time, you know? And sometimes I think, yes, 100% I've been judged, but also like I can make up my own stories all by myself about who I am or what people think of me. So I equally have to give people a chance, and the only way to do that is to be myself. And then I will take what works and I will leave the rest.
Yeah. And being fine with this.
Yes.
Because we can't, like, there's going to be so many people that don't like, or it's just
like,
it's uncontrollable. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something from what you were saying. I heard something. It was the top regrets that they took they asked question to people that were on their deathbed, and like part of the top's regrets that people have was wish they would work less and have more fun, wish they would spend less time working and more time with loved ones, wish they would say more often how they felt and more often do what they wanted to do, and a few more that I forgot. But everything is related to like authenticity. Like you wish you would have like speak more about your truth, or do things more that you enjoy, and take care more of yourself. And it's back to the things you said to the beginning is taking care of yourself is shouldn't be something that you just like quickly do at the beginning of your day, and then because it's what else is important. Like there's so many things we do that are just. We do them, we don't really even know why, we don't really want to do it. Like it's just, and it's just a small part for like the fun or the good or the truth and then the rest were just robots doing things. I mean, not everybody, but it's there's such a small space in the modern world for the slow down and the awareness, of how you feel, or is it fine? Totally. Like some people don't even like, even if like at whatever point you're in your life, like just like sit with yourself for a second. Am I happy? Do I like what I actually do right now?
Yep.
Because what is the point if not? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like what am I doing? Are we going to be gone? What am I doing right now if I'm not? And stop being like, oh, I'll be fine in 5 years when I'll do this, when I'll do that. What can I do today to spend better days?
Yes.
And like it's just there's
100%.
We don't have anything else than that. Like if you don't have that, you have nothing.
You have nothing. And you know, like I get it. We can't all go out and overhaul our lives.
Yeah.
But like there is ways of inviting that in.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to do, because we get caught up in this like, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, or I'm on Instagram and this tells me that I should look like this, or I should be like this. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, well, but I love that. Like, okay, but like sit down and go, am I happy? What does happiness mean to me? And okay, what does it look like? Here's my dream. Okay, so out of my dream, what is actually possible today? And it might be, coming to, a 1 hour yoga class, or going for a walk, or sitting and having a tea and reading a book. Like I don't know, but I actually think it's not shopping. I actually think it's not, yes, I think maybe getting your hair and your nails done, or whatever women do these days, but I think it's past that, so that it's more, becomes more intimate, even, in terms of the relationship you're building with yourself. Maybe it's sitting down and watching a movie with, like I love family movie night with my kids and my partner. I love that. Is there any purpose to it? Do I like half the movies we watch? No, but I love them. I love what it feels like to have them close. So I think that we need to ask that question. I love how you said it. Just like sit at any point. Just sit and like have a real deep check-in. What I also think is funny is our most popular class style here is the one where you basically don't move. So it's very interesting. It wasn't like that before. In all the years I've been teaching, it was, yin restorative meditation. They were a thing, but fast forward to today, it's like the number one most. So it says something about where we're at. We clearly, as a collective, need more pausing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because you were saying you like your movie nights, and it doesn't fulfill a purpose, but we need to see just spending a good moment a purpose.
Yeah.
Because the problem is like this modern society, which is like great for a lot of things, it's awful to sit and embrace the fact that sometimes you don't need other purpose than just spending time where that's going to make you feel good.
Yes.
Because also you're gonna take better you're gonna have better thoughts, better action when you make them from a place where you just did something good. Sometimes just like
Yes.
again what we were saying at the beginning, like sometimes just a little thing that's gonna relieve your anxiety and things. It's gonna dramatically then impact your life for the better.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of like slow down
Taking
and
a
do
moment.
things. Yeah.
When people are first, like some of my private clients that I work with, when they're first trying to figure out like how do I connect with myself? Because when I sit down to journal, it takes me into a to-do list. And if I try and meditate, now I'm thinking of so like sometimes stillness can be really, really hard at first. And so I always recommend, okay, why don't you go for a walk and don't have a destination? And give yourself 30 minutes at least. Be nice if you had longer, but give yourself a 30-minute walk where you go someplace where you don't like rail trail or park, or just choose a neighborhood, and you're not set on the end point. So that at some point along the way, you are just walking, and now you go, because you'll have the moment of to do, okay, go left, go right, whatever, but at some point you'll get to a place where you're just walking, and then that's all you're walking, and now your brain starts to tick off the usual thoughts and goes into a different, you start having like as if though it was just a conversation that was flowing, but it's with yourself. And that practice of doing that, if you can carve out 30 minutes every day, we have a lot of time for a lot of other things. 30 minutes for a walk for yourself, I should do it more. Take your own advice, Dolly. But yeah, I think it helps people, it helps us get past this way of living, which is everything must have purpose. No, it's like you said, purpose sometimes is quality time. If I don't sit down with my kids and my partner, I have no connection. The purpose of that time is to connect with them, right? Not the what are we watching, what are we eating, like the purpose is, hey, you need to know I love you and I need to know you love me. And we can do that sometimes more profoundly if we are doing it with action rather than with just the statement,
Yeah, and these moments, like it's all we truly have, I think.
Yes.
Like moments in time, it's all we truly have. To get back to yoga a little bit, how does that, what I like about it, even if I'm not very experimented, but I found that it can be a good link with that thing with people that are very overstimulated by the environment, etc. Sometimes getting into meditation can be very challenging because you don't move and you have to. There's a lot of different type of meditation and stuff, but I like that yoga can be something that can put you in a meditative state. But there's still like the use of the body.
Oh yeah.
And it can be a good link, and it can be a good, I guess, first step into reconnecting and being in that meditative state with still having a little bit of flow of the body. What are your sorry, I was
no, go ahead.
What are your the favorite type of things you teach here? Because you talked about a few different type. What are your personal favorite one, and what is the one that you see it the most beneficial for people, for let's say general well-being? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. If you put me in a room where I just had, like in the beginning, or when I'm in a place of, maybe my life is just a little bit like up here. I don't even know what the word for that would be, but just like a lot going
in the
like,
thought world.
Yes. Like, and you put me in a room where I have to be still, I'm going to fail. In those moments, I'm going to fail. In the beginning, if you put me in a room where I had to be still and just sit with myself, like that would have been, in many ways, maybe harmful. Because I'm not ready yet. So then I think that's the beauty of yoga, is that there's many different ways of accessing, like you said, a meditative state. And you know, the Rise class, which is a vinyasa style, is flowy, and it's a, you know, that moving meditation really. And so, because you still gotta focus on what I'm saying so that you know what to do with your body, then you have to focus on your breath. So all of a sudden now you're on your breathing and you're on your breath. And anytime you go another place, whether you do it yourself or there's a cue that I say, you're gonna be reminded, this helpful, you know, guide back into that place of body and breath and body and breath. And so it can feel intimidating for some people to go right into a vinyasa style flowing class. It's the same for hatha yoga. Like, there's movement, it's a little slower, it gives you a chance to kind of like, there's just a pacing to it that gives you a chance to kind of acquaint yourself with the shape before you move on to the next one. My favorite to teach and to practice is vinyasa. And that is because I'm one of those people that's like, you know, a little manic. And I love that about myself because that's who I am. And I have many tools now, that help me work with who I am as a person. So it's hard for me to not go, that's the number one, that's my favorite, do that one, I love that one. But I think eventually the goal is, and I really treasure my meditation practices, is ultimately to be able to get to a place of being able to sit still with yourself, you know, for any length of time. And I can't sit, like if you can sit with yourself for an hour still meditating, focus on breath, then power to you. It has looked like different lengths of time for me at different times of my life. Sometimes I can do it for an hour. Other times I struggle to do it for 2 minutes. And that's because life is offering different things. So you have different capacities. But I think ultimately that's where we want to be. And I don't necessarily know if stillness has to be, like, I'll just insert this last point because I want to break away from this idea that stillness, meditation needs to be so strict. You don't want to be like fidget. At some point, yes, that's you or your body trying to run away. But like, if you need to shift a little bit, you shift. You know, if you need it to not be a quiet meditation and you need it to be a guided, like Nidra style, where it's like a body scan meditation, then do that. Like, find the one that works for you instead of trying to, again, slot yourself in a box. The point is to get to a place where you can maybe hold space a little bit for yourself without feeling like you do need to go in any which direction, you know, but we got to start somewhere.
I like I don't know if you know it's called open monitoring meditation. And it's the one where you just sit and there's nothing to do than working on becoming the awareness of everything that arises. Just love this one. And I love that because I think it's a quality that is extremely important then in your life. Because it's what we were talking also a little bit, when there's something arises, being able to be aware of what's going on. That's the first step of being able to then control. And
I love that.
And it doesn't need to be, there's really not like, oh, I need to focus and not think, because you can never not think. It's just like, close your eyes, sit, imagine yourself. When I do that, I imagine myself like kind of above myself, right here. And I visualize everything, whether it's a thought or it's an emotion or thing that comes from behind, from under. And it's just like, seeing and allowing everything. Just, I hear this, I feel that, there's that. But detached from another point of view, you know what I mean? And it's and then you become, like, it's what they call becoming the observer of, or the awareness of everything that's going on. Because you're not your thought, you're not what's going on, you're not your body, you're something else.
And then you stop trying to do something about it.
Exactly.
I love that. Very
it's just
powerful.
Seeing it,
Because then if something happens in your life, like, what a great practice, right? Because then if something happens, it actually gives you a chance to be like, okay, this happened, this make me feel this way. What's going on? What do I do? Right? Without being like, must fix or must run or must, it's just like, I love that. That's powerful.
Totally. What do you? What is your second thing except from yoga that you do? I actually heard you sing and play the piano. I thought it was really good. And
Thank you.
And I was wondering, is music like another thing you do, or do you still like do some? And what and how did you start and all the stuff like that?
I will, because honesty is a pillar in my life. I'm terrible at playing any instrument, so if you ever hear me play an instrument, that's me making up notes and going, that sounds good. Okay, we'll just go with that. Yeah. And it is on my, I'd say my bucket list of one time figuring out how to either play piano or guitar. But I mess around a little bit. Because I am a mother now, I'm trying to get my kids to learn how to play music so then I can have my own little band.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes,
that's
totally.
my goal too. I want to do that too.
It's working out. You should try it for sure.
I'll definitely.
My son is excellent, and he's always up for writing music with me, so I love him so much. But and my daughter plays like maracas or her clarinet, which is a really good time. So good, so good.
Awesome.
But yes, it's a big part. I will always write poetry or songs a cappella and come up with things like that. So like I have like too many journals full of just different songs or poems or even things on my computer. And like usually if everyone goes to bed, I'll still stay up and mess around on the guitar a little bit and just to kind of get it out. And sometimes there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, but mostly it's just a way of expressing whatever is happening. And I think that much the same, like I sing mantra, like chants, I guess would be another way of saying it, like yogic chants, which has been just like such a powerful thing in my life and in my practice, especially in the last few years. But singing the same way, like coming away from yoga, just like writing my own things, I just feel like the vibration of it and the melody of it, there's something about that. Like when you hum, sometimes that can be really calming.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, you caught me. That's another thing I love doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you hum like when you play or also when in your meditation and stuff like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Both. I hum.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you're in my class, especially on one class specifically, there's usually always some kind of mantra or sound making. In my classes generally, I like to make sounds. Like I like to do lion's breaths where it's like ah or like hopefully that didn't spike anything, but no. I just really I like that. I mean, we need to make sounds sometimes, like I am a full supporter of like if you need to grab a pillow and just like scream your head off just to release or be in front of your mirror, like you cannot imagine what my partner has seen me being like, just like, because I think that the muscles in the face that come with making vocal sounds or humming is just so therapeutic.
Yeah.
But also if I'm working through something, like unrelated to yoga, driving in my car, if I'm uncomfortable or I'm working through a thought in my mind, or I think I picked this up from my parents, but like you will catch me going, and then sometimes I'll come up with a melody and then it'll turn into me like singing some random song I've made up on the spot. But I think it's just, I don't know, it's like there's a creativity about it, which is ultimately all creation is a form of expression.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, yelling is really good. It does release endorphin.
Yeah.
Really, it's a really good thing.
I'll just say something.
Yeah.
There is this one class, sometimes in class we've done it, but I remember one night we came in here as a Wednesday night, and I don't know, everybody was just like, you could feel, sometimes there's just a day where everybody's kind of frustrated or feeling like really like they're just tense, and it's my job to the best of my ability as as the person, as the teacher in the room at that time, as the person holding space and guiding, to get a sense of that and hopefully try and release some of that. And so we just started the class. We did like this Kundalini breath work where we just like moved the arms, and at the end we screamed at the top of our lungs. I can't imagine what the people outside were thinking about. And we did that 3 times, and you could just feel it dissipate, and everybody was able to. So it's very powerful. And you go from a place of anger to feeling silly to feeling free.
Yeah, it's a really totally a release for sure.
Yeah.
The humming and the music and I mean there's things with sounds because and especially your own voice and your own the sound that you can make. There's something really therapeutic or that realigns you, because in any way everything is just the thing we're made of is just a vibration.
Yeah.
And it's things that like most people don't like pay attention but it's, even like objects, everything that is physical, we're all made of atoms and we're all vibrating.
Yes.
But everything, even physical objects, and it's something that is fascinating also the first time I learned that, is that we're made of something that is mostly empty and is just an electromagnetic world in which we're living. So there's something, not like necessarily to get into the spirituality, there's something that is very
very much tangible
about sound and vibration.
Yes.
It creates things with the water also.
Yes.
And we're made of water, right? We're
Yes.
60+% of water. So there are things about that, and we all know, like sometimes you hear something or somebody sings or whatever and it gets you chill, or like there's things with sound and vibration that are I'm going to say magic, but it's explainable, but it's very important. So this is why, like, I think the humming is something that is very that can be very good for you.
Totally. I mean, it's like you said, right? Like everyone has had this really basic, but everyone has had this really relatable experience where you hear a song and it makes you feel a way. And not even like the words, but sure, we can say the words, but it's the words, it's how it's sung, it's maybe the instrumental, the pacing, the beat, the tempo, all that stuff. So if we've all had that experience with something audible, then that right there, proof, right? That it's like so much more. Yes, there's the spiritual component, but it's like you said, there's a practical element.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you're in a room and the bass is going, which is why we decked out this place with there's 3 full-on, very powerful speakers that like I only turn up all the way when it's just me here because I don't want to scare anyone. But like there is something that happens to my body. There's like this,
sure.
pounding, and I feel like I come into. So same with the humming, right? Like, it's just a really beautiful exercise. Also of just like, okay, get like that practice of like connecting. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Completely different, but how was your experience building this place?
Yeah. It was a wild ride. I came to Vernon and thought I was going to just teach at another studio and it was going to be all fine, and that didn't really, work out for me for so many reasons, conflict of personalities, blah, 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 etc. And then I was like, that was the moment that I was like, okay, well, I love what I do. I need to do it. And I moved here to be with my partner, and my 2 kids are actually my stepchildren, but I love them like they're my own. And I'm so grateful I made that move, but I'm a person who also needs her own individual purpose. And so I was like, okay, how do I exist here, so that I can stay for I came for love and I want to stay for love, but I also have something else that is building my life as a whole. And so when teaching at another studio didn't work out, I looked for a space. I looked all over. I found a different space. it didn't work out. I'm super glad it didn't. And then, you know, a few more, and then I landed on this one. And that was 2 years before I actually opened the space. So I had, you know, so many things that I came up against. I came up against my own mental and physical health. I was hospitalized for my autoimmune disease, which we hadn't yet identified as an autoimmune disease, so it's really quite extreme. And then you know, my partner was going through a custody battle, and just like a long-winded, like so many things, family things there. And then, you know, at that time, like it was really risky for everybody leasing a space, you know, as a tenant, landlords leasing out, you know, because we had pandemic was like well underway. This was October of 2020 when I came upon this space. And then there was a shortage of contractors, you know, people being sick, and then also just supply shortages and inflation.
Yeah.
And so, and then shutdown after shutdown after shutdown. So it was, I think at the time, if you asked me and to define what it felt felt really torturous and fleeting, which maybe is a bit dramatic, but things would move and then they would just die. They would just die. And like all my talking with my hands, I'm gonna like punch out this mic. But yeah, so like it was like I'd have a dream, it would move forward, and then it would crash and burn. And then we'd pick back up again, and then something would stop it. And then we'd pick back up again, and like that happened so many times. Like there's like an exact number, but we had to move the possession date and just my opening date. I think I moved it like 4 or 5 times. So, you know, because a lot of people ask me when I first opened, because I didn't actually start advertising that this was going to be Noble and that I was opening until like just a few months prior, even though I'd had the space for basically 2 years.
Yeah.
And so people ask me all the time, like, why did you wait that long to like let everyone know you were coming? And I was like, because I wanted to make sure it was true. And I have, I don't want to say I have trust issues, but I don't like saying something and having to take it back,
Yeah.
you know? And at the time, I just wasn't really, I was learning how to believe in myself because it asked of me to be, it asked me to step into myself in a way I'd never stepped into myself because, you know, being a leader in a moment of time, so to speak, being a yoga teacher is really different than owning your own business. And, you know, like it's just like, there's just so many things. I opened this so that I could teach classes. Now I run a business, and that is like, they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. And I love my job today, but it's nothing I ever really, it was not in my mind, if that makes sense. I was just like, I'm just building it. So it asked me to trust the process, and it asked me to trust myself in a way that I had never done before. And I still had a fear of it not coming to fruition. Which felt like failure, like if it didn't happen. So then I had to face my fear of failure. And then when it did eventually open, I had to face my fear of success, meaning I needed to stop looking around and thinking about all the ways that it could fail, you know, which is like such a weird place to be, because you're like, you're constantly pulling yourself. Like sometimes I think I don't need anyone else in the world, because like in terms of like to say anything to me, because I have like 2 voices at least, maybe more than that, in my mind, just like constantly going at it, and I'm just like, could you folks just chill for a second? Yeah. So.
Yeah, wild ride.
Yeah. But it's been beautiful.
Yeah. So how long it's been now that it's open?
So September 24th of 2022 is when we open. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. We are coming up on 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, not even quite. So we're like 7 and a bit. Yeah, so still baby.
Yeah. Why, where the name comes from? Why Noble?
Yeah, this might, not a lot of people ask me this question, and it's one of my favorite questions. It's a couple things. One, the space itself is built with being as environmentally conscious as one can be. So we use noble materials throughout. So everything is like stone, wood, metal. It was really, really important to have, you know, no plastics at all. Certainly not in the construction of the space. You know, I mean, things like, you know, internet modems and stuff like that. Like unfortunately, you gotta compromise.
Yeah.
But to the best of my ability, even what we sell in the retail shop, it is coming from two beautiful human beings. That the clothing is, you know, basically made to order. It's all environmentally friendly materials, meaning it's biodegradable. It's coming from recycled materials anyways. And you can meet the people that are making your clothing. So there's like a real ethically conscious, you know, environmentally conscious thinking behind what I wanted this space, not just to represent, but to be made from. The other thing about noble as a word is that I think, you know, you can use it almost to describe, I think even when you look it up, it like has something to do with like aristocrats or like royalty, right? And yet I think it's actually more about morals.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we can come from such a moral place. And I mean, moral is such a touchy word for people, but I mean like compassion and honesty and empathy and kindness and peacemakers. Maybe not necessarily peacekeeping. Sometimes, yes, we must defend or you know, debate. I understand that, but the whole point is to result in peace rather than in war.
Yeah.
And I think that those are really, and I mean, the list could go on, but those are really noble qualities of a person. Yeah. And why can't that then feel, you know, there's this idea of luxury. So I think my space, I don't know if I would call it like luxurious, but I mean like it feels like quality. And I think anyone can access that because anybody can be, you know, humility, human can be a noble journey, you know, living a really humane way of being, you know, is a really noble thing.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So behind like the intention and the core values.
Core values.
Yeah. In a way, like your own story, your own journey, like allowed you to now like share that safe space and share that passion with something that was literally the thing that helped you and that, you know, helped you rebuild yourself and all that stuff. Because it's not something, I'm not going to say it's rare, because like it's something that you can see here and there, but it's something very special. And it's often people can relate to that, can see this, right? Like things that come from the heart, like passion and sharing and teaching. It's not something you can fake. It does not exist because people see through these things.
Yes.
When somebody does something with the heart. How today does it make you feel, and how people react to that? Like, would you have like an awareness on this? You definitely have, but just wanted to hear you talk about that. The disconnection that you have on that thing that was like so big for you in your life, that now you're able to like share it, and how does that connection make you feel, and is it something that, well, you're definitely you're definitely aware of this, but how does that make you feel for your life, generally speaking? And you were talking about you needed a sense of purpose and to have your own thing. Like today, does it feel like you're fulfilling that purpose? Like how is today this realization impacting you and all around? If that makes sense, because there's
it absolutely makes sense. I think actually the whole time you were talking, I was like, yeah, wow, it's a beautiful question. First and foremost, I think what I would say is, like, I no doubt know, like, maybe I'm one of the lucky ones, but this practice, like, saved my life, you know?
Yeah.
And in all the ways that it's infiltrated my life, right? It's saved my life. And I think that is such a powerful thing for me, and why I'm so passionate about it, because it wasn't just this thing that I liked doing. It whether I knew it or not, continued to be the thing I needed to carry on. And that expanded as I expanded, and it expanded me. And how do I mean, being somebody quite, frankly, and like, this is another moment that I could probably get like a little emotional, but like, I cannot say it more clearly when I say that I really thought my life was worthless. And somebody put that in my head, but then that became the truth I told myself. Regardless of how it started and how I carried it, the point is that was the first thing that I believed about me, which was I wasn't going to be anything, and I wasn't going to go anywhere. So today, I think, to sit here and have this conversation with you, the whole time we're having it, two things are happening for me. One is, oh my gosh, I talk so much, and I hope
okay.
I'm speaking
No,
clearly.
it's okay. Yeah, totally.
And the second thing is, wow, I can't believe I get to sit here today and have this conversation, on my favorite thing to sit on, which is a bolster and a yoga mat, in my studio, in the town that I live in, that I love, and I've made connections with a friend, and later on I'll go home to someone who loves me and kids that love me, and I love them back in return, in my own home. Like, that is as if, though, two people, like, there's two people, it is the mere opposite, like the complete opposite of what my life once looked like. How do you get from point A to point B? I can tell you what worked for me, and we've talked about that today, but the point is that when I look behind me, metaphorically speaking, I know that I did not believe I would be here. It wasn't even, fuck dreams. This wasn't a dream. The dream was, do I even make it another day? And do I make it another day by my own hand, right? Because at the same time, if I had made the opposite choice, it would have been to not go another day by my own hand. And so it is the most powerful thing that has ever happened to me, to have shown myself with the help of so many, because I don't believe we do anything alone. I really believe in a support system. I really believe in asking for help. We don't always get the help we think we need or want, and sometimes you have to say, no, that isn't the help for me. Regardless, ask for help and accept it. So none of this happened alone, but to have shown myself, to be showing myself on the daily that actually my life has meaning, I am capable, I am intelligent, I'm intelligent to me. However anybody else defines me, whatever. I am my own woman. I own my body, you know? Like, there's so many things, Rob, that I just like, that's a powerful thing. It's a powerful feeling.
Yeah.
And then when people share with me, because see I'll wrap this answer up with this, but like the hilarity is, that the sweetest thing about what I do today is that when people come to me and say that I have helped them or supported them or whatever, and I get that. I'm so fortunate to have a community of people that say these loving things to me. About how I've been able to be on their journey with them. The hilarity of that is, or the beauty of it, because it's not hilarious. I mean, it's funny to me because like I don't think they realize that actually, it is so mutual. They give me just so much reason, Yeah. They offer me, they trust me with their bodies, with their hearts, whatever they're willing to share, because that's their choice. But they come here, they trust me. To be trusted, I mean, wow, what an honor. And then that says that, hey, I'm that person. I'm the kind of person that you trust. I'm the kind of person that you can, that you love. Wow, I'm someone, And that isn't by how much I have or whatever. Thank you for all of these things. But that feeling, that is not something you can lay your hands on. That is something that you start to embody, and that rewires the brain and gives me a chance to keep living my life in a holistic way. And so it's the reciprocity in it is beautiful. Yeah. Whew, I just like.
Wow, no, that was really good. And it also hits you probably way more like regarding and seeing your whole story, right? Because also I believe there's a spectrum, right, on how strong you feel things. And if the deepest you go on one side, the deeper you can go on the other side.
Yeah.
Like I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Because you go from you come from more far, so you walked
Yes.
more in the spectrum of all these feelings, and so that you can. Yeah.
I mean, if you experience like intense pain, whatever that means, right? I agree. Like, doesn't it then give you such a comparison for a sense of healing?
Yeah.
Like I think it amplifies that emotion, that experience, that sensation, that I just think it. Yeah, I think today I look at myself in the mirror and I can lock eyes with myself. I can lock eyes with you. That is, I could not do that. Those are polar opposites, but they live on the same plane almost, right? So yes, I think it's not easy to get there. It's a lot harder to like sink than it is to swim.
Yeah.
But and we can. It's a lot easier to sink than it is to swim. Like, it's a lot easier to like plummet and blow up your life. It just happens so much more quickly than it does to build it or rebuild it. But I think that, if you experience one, there is great potential to experience the other. You have to be willing, though. Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, that was really good. Okay, let's maybe finish with this if we have one more minute or something. What would you say with your experience, if you would just like say something to not necessarily your younger self, but I thought I was gonna have a calf cramp. to
I have lacrosse balls for that.
What would you say? So it's gonna come. Sometimes I have the thing I want to say, and it's just not
But also,
phrasing in
like,
my brain.
totally, because like I imagine there's like some translation happening too.
Oh
like,
yeah, but I shouldn't need to really make a translation that deep into this thing. But now, it's also because I just came back from a trip in France.
Yeah.
And I just taught French all the way, and so I always have like the equivalent amount of time just wiring my brain. No, what I want to say is well, just expressing, just seeing your story. It's something that can help and empower other people for sure. But what would you say today? It's you talked about it a little bit, but more maybe in another way. What would you say today to someone that is right now completely lacking that self-worth and doesn't have the faith in possibilities that they can grow into better person and have more and rebuild hope and reconnecting with yourself, and just like where your point were like probably where you were saying you couldn't see any sense of self-worth, and you said that you felt like your life was worthless. What kind of like empowering thing you would say to somebody like that would come to you today and say, well, like how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean,
in one word. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh shit, which one would I choose? Honestly, if I had to choose one word, I would say patience.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think it's a two-parter at least, and I'll give a greater answer than this, but like determination and patience. I don't think we come by. I grew up with this saying, luck favors the prepared. Yes, I believe that miracles happen, and there's certain things that are absolutely unexplainable, but generally, I think for me, I believe that if I do the work to stand in the right place, it's a lot easier to be seen or get the opportunity, or to understand the situation. If I want this over here, but I'm doing nothing, and I'm just hoping that like a lightning bolt strikes and poof, it's, magic will make it so, then I might be lost for a while. People have different belief systems in that, but when I quit, so if somebody's in a place where they don't believe in themselves and they're trying to rebuild that, whether it's addiction or coming back from any type of abuse or trauma, like there's a lot of work. It's really unfortunate because how we got there, the turmoil, the unmanageability, there's probably a lot of people, places, and things that we could blame and, might actually be responsible for part of, if not all of, the hurt that we then walk forward with and act out on. It just doesn't really matter when it comes to doing the work to heal.
Yeah.
It has to be a choice that you wake up and make every single day and then put the effort in and also rest, right? There is a relationship here. I don't think we do any of it alone. So I would say like ask for help and take advice. Figure out who is, who you can trust. Sometimes you only need one or two people. But willing your own way and making all your own choices, and just the echo that we hear in our heads, like I think we need external sounding boards. And then patience, right? being committed to the process of building your life and bettering yourself is not just a decision you make one day and then you do a few things and presto, like, ta-da, it's all good. This word trauma, I keep saying it, but it reveals itself, defects of character. I'm pulling some of these things from my own recovery process, but like they reveal themselves over time. Like you can't see your whole self in a day. You didn't lose yourself in a day, right? It happened over a course of like a period of time. So it's now going to take time, and it's usually an uphill battle to claim that back, So patience is really, really key to understanding that, like, sometimes healing happens in these little moments that we would often overlook. We might not even notice as you're just going about it, sleeping through the night. That was a really big one for me. That was a sign that some healing had happened. And so, but I didn't even really realize that at the time.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? I look back and I go, oh yeah, I slept through the night. Wow, that's so huge. I went years without sleeping through the night. So like we are prone to missing things because we're so set on what we think the outcome should look like. So be committed to the process. Understand it's going to be so hard and so exhausting some days. Rest when you need to. Eat, drink water. Like these are like these basic human things, but they're so easy to like push aside. And then give yourself credit where credit is due, and honestly, don't give up. Because each time you want to give up, when you don't give up on yourself, you just showed yourself now, hey, I'm worth showing up for. And that will stack up, and then one day it just ends up being like I wake up in the morning and I know I got to take care of myself in this way. It will be so rewarding, though. It is so rewarding. And I need to remind myself of it still to this day sometimes where old stories pop up. But as hard as the work is, I thankfully never have to go back and live the way I was living, because that was such a dark place. And today there is a constant reminder of like just light. Like whatever you define that as light, a person, a place, a feeling, a thing, like there is a constant reminder of light. And so it's hard to stay down now, it's hard to stay down. And that's a great reward of sticking with the process of like coming from a place where I was like, do I even go on? Yes, go on, please. Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I think these were good words to wrap it up.
Yeah, amazing.
That was good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for saying all these things. It's not easy, sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
but it's good. It's out there. I mean, it will be out there. And then it works. It's magic, and then we keep going.
I'll message you later and be like, delete it all. Just kidding. No, this will be great.
No, that was good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do one thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go
which
ahead.
is we'll just close with 5 breaths.
Yep, for sure.
Find yourself in a comfortable seat, which might not be easy now that we've been sitting for like 2 hours, but
like that.
and then you'll just close your eyes, or you can soften your gaze and choose one point in front of you to focus on. I like to close my eyes. And then bring your hands somewhere on your body. I tend to bring my hands to my legs when I'm doing this, and I place my palms down if I'm feeling like really, really manic, so that's an option. Or if you're feeling fatigued or overwhelmed, that's also nice to place the palms down. If you're needing more energy, and the fatigue is just coming from a place of just like super, I don't know, like a state of frozenness, then palms up. And then once you've chosen that, start to get a sense of your breathing. You don't need to change anything about your breath, because first it's important to notice, to become aware before you make any shifts. And then you start to breathe deeply into the bottom of your lungs, expanding your rib cage, a full breath in. And then out your mouth, a full breath out. And you'll do that a few times. And after your third exhale through your mouth, start to seal your lips and keep that same length and depth of breath, but could you move it now to your nose, inhale and exhale for the next 5 rounds. Using these last round or two to just scan your body from top to bottom so that you invite in a deeper connection that moves past the physical self, but also into the emotional and the mental self, drawing a union between all facets of who you are. A great reminder that you are a complex being, but there's something sweet and simple about the fact that you are one whole person. All these different layers make up who you are, and there's so many ways to walk through the world showing up with your whole self. So thank you so much for sharing this time with me, Rob. And I love you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for sharing that too. That was good.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm going to hug the mic.
And that's a wrap.